Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the July 3rd Thursday Web Forum. I'm Hillary Morris. I work on Blueprint User Support and Communications for the South Atlantic LCC. So every month we host this web forum where we typically feature a presentation on current and ongoing work throughout the cooperative, and it serves as a great chance for folks to ask questions and help shape the future of the South Atlantic LCC. So today we have a little bit of a different agenda. As usual, I'll start out with the introduction and logistics. And today we're going to move into a quick presentation from Rua on the 2016 to 2017 Cooperative Work Plan, just to set the stage for talking about the future. And then we're going to move into a brainstorming and discussion session just to generate some ideas for where you see your cooperative and the blueprint going. And we'll wrap up at the end with a quick update from LCC staff and some time for questions. So before I hand things off to Rua, I'm not going to put the conference in silent mode today so that we can have a little bit more of an interactive discussion. So please be sure that you're on mute if you're not speaking, just to minimize background noise. So at any time, if you have a question or a comment, just unmute your phone and speak up. So today presenting, we have Rua Mordecai, who's of course our very own science coordinator. And he's going to be facilitating a discussion with everyone here on the line and on MeetingSphere today about where your cooperative is going into the future. So what's the next big thing? Rua?
All right. So now the question here. We're going to be imagining we have a time machine and we can move into the future and see what things look like 5 years into the, and things are wildly successful, everything's going great. So we'll do a little bit of brainstorming about where you'd like your cooperative to go next. What are the next steps? You'll notice we're in slightly different software this time. We're back in MeetingSphere to do some brainstorming. What I'll do once we get to the more interactive component is I'll also ask if anyone's calling in and not on the MeetingSphere, and then we'll just kind of have you shout out your ideas and I'll type them in for you so we can capture some of those pieces. But what, like Hillary said, before we start going into the next, what's going in 5 years into the future, I was going to give you a quick overview of the work plan for this year, so kind of over the next year. So the work plan for this year has these kind of three high-level elements. We'll talk about them in a little more detail. So the first one is supporting blueprint uses to facilitate specific conservation action. These are order of priority, and the highest priority by quite a bit is actually this top one of supporting blueprint uses. The particular focus on trying to bring in new conservation dollars from some more national funding sources. Then we have the improved component, which is basically taking the blueprint to the next level. A lot of that is improving the blueprint itself. And then promoting the blueprint. And so promoting is more just going out and talking about the blueprint more general to different types of audiences. So we'll talk about each of these, but this is the priority order. This is set by the steering committee, and so this applies not just to staff, but the steering committee themselves and other groups. So this is going to be the big focus for this year. Now, I'll go into each of the individual pieces. So the first one, the big one, supporting blueprint uses. So I mentioned before that top priority one is using the blueprint to bring in new resources for conservation action. Started to already have some good success with the Wildland Fire Resilient Landscapes program, starting to get some more good potential from some other sources. So this is the idea of being the next big no-brainer investment for national funding sources. And so in the past, over the last year, this stuff was important, but a little bit lower of a priority than promoting the blueprint for the steering committee. And so now we've been a little more reactive on a lot of these. We've helped a lot of folks use the blueprint to kind of amplify their proposals and help bring in new dollars, but expect a lot more proactive roles from your staff and other folks in the cooperative in trying to really leverage the great relationships and resources we now have through the cooperative. Then there's also integrating the blueprint into organizational policy. We have a number of different organizations that are looking at doing that, particularly with respect to land acquisition, but also in restoration and mitigation across multiple organizations. So more hands-on help with those individuals and organizations in doing that. And then clearing barriers for the next big uses. What's the big barrier going on that's holding us back as far as implementing these actions in the blueprint. So that's the supporting blueprint uses component. So then the next one going down as far as level of effort is taking the blueprint to the next level. So that includes a few different categories of things. First off, supporting a lot of really great projects that are already have either been going on for a year or are just now getting ramped up fairly soon. Coordinated monitoring of pine indicators. This comes from the Wild and Fire Resilient Landscapes piece, so expect to hear more about that soon. Improving our action indicator models. This is that very specific sort of, we do restoration here, we do acquisition here. What does that mean for all the ecosystem indicators? Supporting our great ongoing urban conservation projects, marine rare species projects. So that's just kind of really helping make them be great. You'll hear more about some renewable energy and renewable energy and conservation facilitation that's going to be happening soon. And then also on the way, some new features for the Blueprint viewer itself, which you'll hear about on the next web forum. So these are kind of a lot of existing projects that are going on, helping support and improve the Blueprint. And they're also involving investments via a bunch of different organizations to make them happen. So that's exciting. And then the other components of this is improving the Blueprint documentation. And so we've been actually, as a staff meeting, an hour a day for the last while, getting ready for the 2.1 release. And just really kind of cranking up the level of detail and review and making sure that all the documentation for all the layers and all the pieces are understandable and documented well. Going to start on time-bound targets. So if you remember a few years ago, we set some specific targets for our indicators. Well, what are we shooting for? And we started winning into win. What are we trying to get to? But a number of those we found didn't quite work as well as we thought. And according to our target criteria, they have to be practical. And some of our new indicators don't have targets yet. So this is basically to help get us to, what are we shooting for getting these indicators into in the next 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, so we can make sure we're on track to what we're doing. So, not going to finish the updates for everything, but going to make a dent out of that this year. Very small update to a few indicators and working on some improvements to the corridors as well. So this will be, smaller amount of effort than we did over the last year, but, small improvements in pretty much all of these different components. But again, the bulk of the work is going to be trying to bring in some new conservation dollars and supporting Blueprint users. And then the last piece is the promoting the Blueprint. So this is the absolute still some effort, but very, very low, which is this more general promotion. We've had meetings with specific organizations to talk more generally about the Blueprint, presentations at various meetings and conferences. We haven't done a ton of them, but now, based on steering committee feedback and folks from others, we are really slashing that. So expect to see, unless it's directly helping, a very specific Blueprint use to bring in new dollars directly, for this year, we're going to cut back quite a bit on just general communications about the Blueprint. So that is the quick overview of the LCC work plan for 2016 to 2017. Before we go into the next step of visioning into the future, are there any questions about this year's work plan? And so the phone lines are open, although don't forget to take yourself off mute. So if you have any questions, feel free. You can ask them on the phone if you'd like.
Rua, this is John Faustini.
Hey, John.
Yeah, I think this looks good. I do think the outreach, the promotion component is very important. So I wouldn't weight that too lightly. And I think just the fact that we've these web forums, which are great by the way, but they're barely in the double digits in terms of participation commonly, and so I think there's some more work to do to kind of promote active participation, and I think there's some more in-reach to do. I think I still all too frequently talk to people, hear from people in Fish and Wildlife that just don't know what the LCCs do. So I think I think that's an important component is really promoting the Blueprint and promoting the LCC.
Yeah, and that's why it's still in part of the core piece. So that was part of the steering committee discussion as well. So, it's not like we're dropping communication, not like we're, not having some of those conversations, and yourself being included in some of that education, like you telling other people and folks on the line. But it is kind of, it's a little bit lower than the specific uses component at this point. But yes, it's that's definitely a key point, that it's not dropping it entirely.
And we'll certainly be keeping the web forum alive.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for being such a regular.
Yeah. So, cool. Any other questions before we move forward? Thanks for that, John. All right, excellent. So we're going to move to the next step here. So now it's time to think further into the future. So now imagine we've transported ourselves in that next 5 years, and you're reading the headlines about what's going on. I'm gonna move us to another activity here. So got everybody on the slide, and we're gonna go through a series of brainstorming questions here. And so I'll give you the quick overview for those that have not done this, and then I'll also ask for folks that are maybe on the phone or having any trouble connecting to MeetingSphere. So the first brainstorming question we're going to do is going to be pretty broad, and then we'll go into some more specifics. So I'm getting everyone started here on this first question, which is basically, what would you like your cooperative to do in the next 5 years? So, move forward. What kind of stuff would you like to see happening 5 years into the future? And so for those that aren't familiar with the brainstorming here in MeetingSphere, at the very bottom there's kind of a little light bulb, and it's got a little thing that says enter your idea here. So basically you can just go down, click there, enter, enter an idea, hit the check mark, and it'll come up there. Often we've done this anonymously. This time I've tagged contributors, because if there's a specific thing, we may want to follow up with you, and if we're spinning up a team or bringing some things together. So we've got everyone started, so feel free to just kind of enter some brainstorming ideas. We're going to be taking and condensing this, and this is going to be some stuff we'll be using into the, some of the future work plans and future scoping for the cooperative. So give you all a second to type in some ideas, and we'll let that go for a little bit, and then we'll go on to the next question. Yeah, getting some good ideas. Keep them coming. We'll give you all a few minutes to think about them and type, and we'll make sure everyone's done and then roll. Looks like we still got some good ideas coming here, so we'll give another minute or so, and then I'll just double check just to make sure everyone's done. So no rush. Okay, anyone? Oh, forgot one more. Excellent. Cool. Second. Anyone need a little more time? Still typing something in? All right. Excellent. Good brainstorm. Okay, so we've got this queued up here, and we're going to stop everybody in this brainstorming. And we're going to move to the next question. So we talk more about the cooperative, so we talk fairly specific about just the cooperative in general and pieces. There's going to be a little bit of overlap in some of this next question here, but we're going to get a little more specific. And so if there's additional things that you don't think are as well captured in your previous comments, now we're going to talk about what you'd like the blueprint itself to do over the next 5 years. So now bounded to the conservation blueprint. Obviously, some of the feedback from the last one applies, and that's okay. That's all good too. So additional things that maybe you hadn't thought about or considering that you'd like the conservation blueprint to be able to do for you in the next 5 years. Got us started on that one. Looking good. Let's pick up some good ideas here, really relevant to some of the specific things, even for this year, which is great. Some improvements in corridors and how we improve the incorporation of cultural heritage, integration with LCC. So this is really good. This is good stuff. I'll give you give people just a little bit more time, and then I'll ask if everyone's all good. So give you a little more to add. I still see some things being added. Anyone need a little bit more time for ideas? Adding your ideas for this one? One more second. All right. Excellent, excellent. Okay, close this out. All right, next question. It's going to be a little bit different. And so in this case, we talked a lot about things the Blueprint could do, or what your cooperative could do, and what you'd like to see. Now, think about how you imagine accessing Blueprint in the next 5 years. So, think about what makes sense for you. Don't worry about even technological limitations or any of that stuff. Move forward 5 years. How do you want that interface to be? Be it computer or through people, or how would you like to access that information? So that is the question. I'll give you a little time to think on that and type out some ideas. Oh, and I completely forgot to ask, and I greatly apologize. Is there anyone on the phone that's not on the meeting sphere? Is anyone on the phone that wasn't able to connect to the meeting sphere? Okay, good. Just checking. I figured you would have spoke up, but just in case. Yeah, this is perfect stuff. Good. Regular thinking into the future thinking, and then some parallel interfaces or things that y'all like. That's good. Good stuff. I'll give you a little bit longer to get those neurons firing and think of some ideas. All right, anyone need a little bit more time? I ask that question and wait for rapid typing in the background. Yeah, these are some really good entry points and ideas. All of them actually theoretically doable in the next 5 years, including Rick's heads-up display and VR fly-through. I actually have a bunch of equipment here at the university that some people just 2 buildings away that do a lot of that with sea level rise and urban growth. It's pretty fun. The fly-throughs are very fun. All right. Now, sounds like everyone's got some good ideas in here. Now we'll go to the next question. Say, so the next one's also a critical question, which is the kind of inverse of what we've been talking about, which is the classic crash and burn question. All right, let's move 5 years in the future. Oh, crap. You know, blueprint process, blueprint effort, crash and burned, it failed, telling the story of why it failed. And the reason we ask this question, pretty much every project and effort is the classic, you know, what to watch out for. But these are things then we just turn around and say, well, how do we make sure this doesn't happen? And that can be sort of good guideposts and tests as we're trying to do some of these things and as we move forward. So this is a good chance to put on your nightmare hat, your skeptic hat, and be like, oh, crap, what are some of these worst case scenario things we need to watch out for in the next 5 years?
Oh, gosh.
So I usually get some good funny ones in there. Yeah, another 20, 30 seconds or so just to get any other last ideas. John, you win for the most straightforward blueprint failure story.
You said disasters.
I know, that is, we talk about natural disasters, but that'd be a pretty hard one to recover from. I don't know how much our various resilience planning efforts will work in the face of an asteroid or comet hitting the
When
southeast.
we talk about planning for threats, that's usually not on the list. It's usually sea level rise, you know?
No, actually, although volcanic and that is technically in the taxonomy, but
Yeah.
that's a tough one to come back from.
Yeah.
Anyone need a little more time? Anyone got another really good apocalypse thing brewing? Zombie plague or something like
Alien invasion.
Yeah. Cool.
Super volcano.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There you
Yep.
go.
Now you're talking.
I think that's another quality one. All right, excellent. Good one. Perfect. Okay. Any other pieces before we move on? Awesome. All right. We'll go ahead, close this one out. All right, one other box. Usually, no matter how well you think out the scoping questions, there's always something that doesn't quite fit in one of these questions or box, some kind of word of wisdom or some kind of thought or piece. It's like, oh, you know, it didn't quite fit into anything else. So wanted to add with just sort of other thoughts and comments for the future that may not have fit into those boxes, or other things you want to capture when we start thinking about that long-term future of where your cooperative's going. I'll give you a second to think and add a couple of those. Great stuff. Good other thoughts. So, anyone need a little more time? Listening to rapid typing in the background, or anyone still working on it? All right, excellent. Very good brainstorming. So what we're going to do with, and for folks that are new with the cooperative, a few folks who may be following up with individually some specifics of some of the ideas and questions, catch you up on where things are at. But in general, what we've done in the past with a lot of this is it's helped stage the different plans and helps prioritize as we're moving forward on things like corridors and outreach and ecosystem services. This is essentially some of the guideposts we use to figure out, should we focus more on this, should we focus more on that? So this is very, very helpful, and don't be surprised if sometimes you may see some of this stuff very explicitly in various work plans and stuff into the future. So very, very excellent stuff. So now we're going to close you out here. We'll go back to Hillary and some staff updates and some discussion on the next forum. So, 1 second.
Excellent.
Go. Now we are back from the future.
Back from the distant future to the next month. Just some quick staff updates for you. First of all, the eagerly awaited release of Blueprint 2.1. So just check in about that, the spatial prioritization of the blueprint, this pretty picture that you're looking at right now. That's finished. That's approved by the steering committee as of last month's meeting. So staff are working on updating the documentation. Like Rua mentioned, we've been meeting regularly, getting all the metadata cleaned up and ready for prime time. So we expect the official release in August. So stay tuned. We're getting very, very close to Blueprint 2.1, and as you've heard from Rua on past web forums, this is a blueprint that uses very similar methods to Blueprint 2.0, but incorporates some improved data for the indicators, particularly in the freshwater aquatic and the marine environment. And as you can see, we've added marine and estuarine corridors and changed the color scheme a little bit in response to feedback from the steering committee since the draft of Blueprint 2.1 that was out for review. And just previewing next month's Third Thursday Web Forum, it'll be on August 18th, same time, but a different place. We'll be back on our regularly scheduled WebEx line that regulars will be familiar with. So I'll be talking to you guys about changes to the simple viewer for Blueprint 2.1. We'll take a look at what's new and what's next for the future of this viewer, which, as you may know, is obviously our simpler viewer that summarizes the blueprint and the indicators at a sub-watershed and a lease block scale. And finally, I always wrap up just wanting to make sure folks know how they can get involved in their cooperative. In addition to contacting your staff, like me, Rua, Mallory, Amy, Louise, please feel free to talk to someone else who's involved in the cooperative. We also post regular updates and events on our website where you can go to learn about upcoming projects, opportunities to serve on teams. That's where you can access spatial data and the conservation blueprint. So if you haven't already, I'd really encourage you to join our web community so you can get access to our monthly newsletter as well as a reminder about this monthly web forum. So with that, I'll open the floor for any additional questions anyone might have before we sign off. Don't be shy. All right, well, that's it from the staff of your cooperative. Thanks again, Rua, for presenting, and we really appreciate everyone's time and their feedback this morning. Hope we'll see you again next month.
Thank you. Thanks.
Great, thanks.
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 Thanks.